Makhosi Sendlunkulu, honorable mayors, would like to apologize for a bit of a glitch. Leadership is just about to enter the conference room. In the next minute or so, we apologize profusely for the late start. Sixolise makhosi akithi aseNdlunkulu, nabahlonishwa ama-mayors, and all other delegates who are part of this summit. Few things though would like to bring to the attention of the House or the summit. One, there are translation devices which are going to be provided to delegates who may need them. May I request the colleague there who will actually be issuing those devices to raise the hand? Just raise the hand, colleague there. Nangu zakwethu uhlezi la etafuleni ngaphambili. He will actually be seated here. Then all those delegates who may require the translation devices are at liberty to actually go there and ask for one. For one reason, delegates would be free to use any language of their choice, but in the main would prefer English as well as isiZulu. But other languages too, isiXhosa can also be used as well. So these actually devices will then become handy in that particular regard. So all delegates are therefore humbly requested to do so. Another household rule again is that with regards to the bathrooms, izindlu zangasese ama-toilet, uma sehla phansi we take left, further left, the U shape, and then there are bathrooms for females and also bathrooms for males as well. I think ilokho kwamanje besicela ukuthi sikubring to the attention of the delegates. And I'm sure that, okay, the Chief of Staff is indicating to me that Honorable Premier, MECs, as well as Inkosi yakithi, Yasemadungeni, and the Honorable Mayor, they are on the way. May I request the House to rise to welcome Honorable Premier, MECs, and the Mayor as well. While we are still standing, I will then humbly hand over to Honorable MEC, who will be our Program Director, Ubaba Mhlonishwa Ubophela, for us to start with item number 1. Over to you, Honorable MEC. Ubophela Mkhulu.
Thank you very much. Greetings to Honorable Premier, all MECs, MEC Konyeni, MEC Stole, Mloyi, Kosasemadungweni, Sihle Provincial House, all makhosi asendlunkulu akhona ngaphakathi, siyakhuleka makhosi akhona ngaphakathi. We want to extend our greetings to mayors present here, all senior officials, national departments who are part of this meeting, different provincial government departments. We want to observe the protocol because of time. I will request that we start our meeting the national anthem. Sonke sime ngendlela yakhona. Sicele and other stakeholders and provincial government is also do presentation on engage on number of issues. As already indicated that as we are here, the summit is designed to deliberate on number of issues, especially on how we're going to manage land administration at the local level, especially the land that is owned by government, the land that is owned by amakhosi. That's why we also invited even Ingonyama Transport to also be part of the engagement at the different commissions that we have already allocated. We'll then request all participants to ensure that they engage the presentation that will be presented and will be taken from the remarks that will also made by the Premier and the MEC, Nkosi Yase Matungeni. And I think I've already indicated that we have Ndona Nkulu and then MEC Sithole Mloyi, who's dealing with agriculture and land reform, and also MEC Konyeni, who's dealing with transport and community safety, and Honorable Mayor as a host, Yala Kwekwe Metro. I think it's important that we all focus on the matter on hand. We don't allow ourselves to defocus and raise other issues. Whatever issues that we must deal with today are issues of land. Ingakho sicele wonke umuntu ukuthi sizokwazi ukuthi sidile nalowo matter leyo. Sizocela ke with due respect, we will try to mix a language so that everyone will understand what is the purpose of this meeting, but I'm not going to give the details, the purpose of this summit, but I will request that Lisa to come and give us a brief presentation on the purpose as we come through, the purpose of this provincial. This is a provincial program led by the Premier and our directed just as a department to preside over and because as a line function department. Hence, we're going to request Lisa to take us through. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MEC, and greetings to the Honourable Premier, to the Honourable Mayor, and to the MECs present, and to the mayors, to the traditional leaders in the meeting, to heads of department, municipalities, to colleagues from civil society who've joined us. I see that there are many who have made the time to attend and discuss with us. My task is a brief one, to just take you through the purpose of the summit. In your document packs, you will have a concept document, and I'm going to touch a little bit on those issues just so we set the tone of what it is that we had intended to talk about over the next 2 days and why. The summit it comes from a decision by the Provincial Executive Council that we should hold one where we can have discussions around land management issues and relationships between municipalities and traditional authorities and other role players. So we are giving a purpose that's saying we are responding to citizens' call for an efficient land administration and management in our government, capable of responding to our development needs 25 years into the dispensation. So it is a recognition that 25 years in, it's still an urgent issue that we need to, and critical issue that we need to discuss. So what do we mean by that? If you look at the concept document that we've shared with you, it's important for us to talk about the same thing. So when we say land governance, when we say, we often talk about municipal governance and good governance. We don't often talk about land governance, but land governance is a very important part of governing in our country. And every country has its own land governance system. It's usually made up of a number of things. Parliament or councils pass laws that give you rights on land and how to use it. You have the courts that will adjudicate disputes if we don't agree what the law says or who has the right. But in between that, you have a lot of administration and administrators and management who give effect to those laws. So today, we are here today to talk about that part of the land governance system. We may touch on some of the laws and the policies, we may touch on what the courts are doing, but we need to reflect on how we are managing those laws and how we are administering them and whether they're giving effect to what we set out to do. And really that's what land governance is about. It's about telling us who the authorities are, what the rules are, what the processes are that should be in place to make sure that our land tenure system or our property system functions well. So when we talk about land administration, what are the things that we may mean or we need to think about? We need to think about who the land administration body is, who are the role players, and there are many, and we'll touch on those in our discussions. The second thing we need to think about is this body manages rights and rules. We don't make the rules, we're the administrators and managers. We administer them and make sure that they're followed. And if the rules are not working, we go back to Parliament or Council and we ask for a reflection on that. Administrators also adjudicate disputes around rights. They also regulate land use. It's a function of municipalities and of traditional authorities to ensure that people are following the rules that you set for use of land in that area. They also manage relationships between public and private interests, make sure that private sector doesn't impede on the rights of citizens and vice versa. They also collect taxes. Land taxes is not a unique thing to South Africa. It's something that's done all over the world. It's a responsibility of citizens to contribute to the governance of their country, and it's something we'll discuss a little bit more in the next 2 days. And then they also enforce those rules. There are many role players in South Africa. They include all of those land governance sectors that I spoke of. They include the judiciary, they include all 3 spheres of government. We all have a responsibility, all 3 spheres, and they include Parliament. But they also include professional organizations. So we can't transact in land without a conveyancer or without a surveyor or without a evaluator, etc. It also in South Africa includes traditional authorities. They constitutionally were given and recognized their authority around administering customary land rights, and they also includes land rights holders. So anybody who has a right on land is able to do certain things that the law recognizes. So we have to recognize all of those things. Normally what we do is as our government, we put a plan in place. People will have heard spatial development frameworks, and in this province we're developing one. Many of you have been consulted over the last year or two. It should set our 20-year vision. What do we want to see happen with our land in this province? Our vision that's been proposed and is being presented to the Provincial Executive Council is one of equitable utilization of physical and environmental resources so that we achieve greater spatial integration and sustainability. It's got a number of objectives, and I'm not going to go through them because of time, but it should guide all of us, not just government, but all of us, and it should be informed by all of your issues and guide what we want to see happen in 20 years. However, there are a number of challenges, and that's why we're here for the next 2 days. There are a number of challenges. And those challenges come from our history, in KZN in particular, but in the country as a whole. And there are 4 broad, if you think about the history from colonial times through to apartheid, there are 4 broad areas and ways in which we can see that have shaped how land is being used and where people live in the province. One is the establishment of reserves by the colonial government that were then entrenched by the apartheid system. It underpinned how white commercial agriculture took off, but it also pushed people into smaller into smaller percentages of the province. The second big issue for KZN was this issue of labor tenancy, where people found themselves living on farms and still find themselves living on farms, and today we're still dealing with issues of farm dwellers and how to ensure that they also have a sustainable future. And the fourth one was obviously the issue around township development, where people were pushed to the peripheries and not included in the formula. So these are many of the challenges that we need to speak about, but the administration and management of those and how to ensure that we address them becomes an issue. One of the key problems that we face, and you'll see it in the document that we need to talk about in the next 2 days, is information. Do we all understand the issues in the same way, and are we all informed by the same information? Many of us are collecting data and information about who owns what, but we don't have one place where that is happening. So, for example, in KZN, we have 3 broad land categories. We have state land, we have land held by the Ngonyama Trust, and we have privately owned land. It's sort of split along those percentages, but I know some of you may dispute the percentage I've put there, so I'm just saying it's indicative. It gives an indication. But it's very important that we begin to reach agreement about what it is that we're looking at, and we'll have a discussion about that. The land uses, this map that you see in front of you, it's got pink and yellow and purple, tells you how it's, the yellow area is all the privately owned land, the pink area is the Ngonyama Trust owned land, and the purple area is all the state land. And you can see across our province how mixed that is. It's not all in one place, and we have to try and work with those different land ownership patterns in the province. Where's the population? Most of the population is still resident on, is about 48% resident on privately owned land, about 33% is still living on Ngonyama Trust land, and the rest on state land. The traditional authorities, it's important to recognize there are approximately 304 traditional councils. If you look at this map, it'll tell you in the pink and green areas are the areas where we will find recognized traditional authorities functioning. The blue areas is where they aren't registered or recognized or proclaimed traditional authorities. But I think the map just gives you, again, some idea about how many there are, how they spread across the province, and how they overlay and overlap with municipalities. So municipalities have a function, traditional authorities have a function over the same areas, and that requires a level of understanding and cooperation around how we govern land in that area. Another point on traditional authorities is that the traditional authority areas, this map that you can see, it's red and yellow. It tells you where the state land is red, where it's yellow is the Ngonyama Trust owned land. And if you look closely, there's like lined hash line over that. The hash line tells you where the traditional authority areas are. And you'll see that traditional authority areas of jurisdiction don't only cover Ngonyama Trust land. They also cover state land, and in some cases they also cover privately owned land. And that means we end up with a whole lot of land rights users in some places that need to acknowledge each other and find a way to reach agreement about how to manage land in those areas. The land reform program sort of tried to address some of these issues, but what we found is that land reform can only acquire land and put it into a CPA and trust when they're working with traditional authorities, and we've seen the result is often eventually there's conflict between the traditional authority and those CPAs and trusts, and we need to have a discussion about how to resolve that and how to ensure that citizens in those areas benefit from the development that should be taking place. On the issue of farm dwellers, the point I'm raising here is that there is actually no land audit. There's no record in place that tells us these are the numbers of families living on privately owned commercial farming areas in the province. This Department of Land Affairs in 2006 did a survey, and it was sort of an estimate, and wherever you see red is where they estimated families were living, and they estimated the numbers of families who were still resident on farms in 2006. But there's no formal record of this, and again, this is something that we need to talk about. Isn't there not a way that we can do a land audit and develop a record of these families so that they are acknowledged and counted into our system and planned for? There was also a court case that we need to acknowledge that took place by labor tenant families who lodged claims and who were unhappy with the processing of that, and the courts appointed a special master, and I believe the special master is in attendance today as well, and should be with us for the next 2 days. State land, we have a large portion of our province which is state land, but that state land is allocated between a number of different departments for a number of different uses. So when you look at this map, all of those colors are state land, but they sit either with the national department or the provincial department, or land reform or public works. And the question is, how are we coordinating around how we use that state land? I'm not going to comment on land reform. This is just an indication of where land reform is taking place in the province. Wherever you see those colors, that's where land reform has taken place. I think the point that we want to raise in the 2 days is that we don't actually have a land reform strategy in the province. And it's something we should think about. Is there a way that we can begin to agree where the areas are of priority that we need to be acquiring land and securing it for development purposes? If I can move briefly along, I think the issue around settlements is also a discussion that we'll be having in the next 2 days, and it's about how people are able or enabled to access land. We're seeing an increasing number of irregular and informal settlements, people accessing land in a variety of ways that don't follow our rules that we've set in our laws. And this is resulting in a number of challenges for municipalities in particular who need to try and plan and manage those areas. My almost last slide on this was just a comment also on agriculture. It's an important economic sector for the province, but at the moment there's still an act that comes from 1970 that requires that the national minister makes a decision on whether land for agriculture is kept for agriculture or it's released for something else. There needs to be some discussion about how we can have an RGR arrangement around addressing that. So I've summarized the problems on the slide. I'm not going to go through them. I believe these are the issues we are hoping that we'll cover today and tomorrow and come with some recommendations on. There are 3 themes that the MEC touched on as well, and I'm just reminding you, these are the themes that we hope to speak to. The program is structured in this way. Today we'll look at theme 1 around the issue of well-located land. Tomorrow we'll look at theme 2 and 3 around land administration and management, and also look at the proposal around a local land office. And I thank you, MEC. I'm finished. Thanks.
Thank you very much. At least now we have an understanding of the purpose of this summit. It was a presentation, not actually the purpose, but just give us a presentation of the land summit, as she articulated a number of issues that we as participants or delegates, we need to engage on those matters. But there are other presentations that we are going to receive from different delegates from this important summit. Thank you very much, Madam. We'll then, because of time, request His Worship, Bab Mayor of Bab Kaunda, to come and welcome us here at the Metro, Bab Kaunda. We'll also release him. I think I must raise that apology, so that in case Simboneng Aseko, we will release him because he must attend another urgent meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable MEC Shomuga, MEC for Governance and Traditional Leadership, Traditional Affairs in our province. Honorable Premier of our province, Ubaba Ukuzeni, the MEC for Agriculture and Rural Development, Honorable Stolim Loy, the MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison, Honorable Nkonyeni, uhlalo wendlu yobukhosi bakithi lapha KwaZulu-Natal, inkosi ubaba uChiliza, inkosi yaseMadungeni, amakhosi onke akhona sendlunkulu eqhamuka kuzo zonke izifunda zalapha KwaZulu-Natal kusifundazwe sakithi. Sibingelela ama-HODs akhona phakathi kwethu, HOD uTubana kanjalo no-HOD Sibande and many other senior government officials present. Angikwazi ukulibala ozakwethu, izimeya, abasebenzi bomphakathi ababhekene ney'nkinga zomphakathi usuku nosuku, iy'nkinga zamanzi, iy'nkinga zemigwaqo, ezikagesi nezizindlu zibheke thina. Sibingelele the national officials from different departments, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, sanibonani. As eThekwini municipality, we appreciate the opportunity to be part of this summit to address the challenges of land management in the province. Kuyintokozo enkulu kuthina ukuthi sibe ingxenye yalo msebenzi omkhulu kangaka ubhekana nodaba lokumanejwa komhlaba kusifundazwe sakithi. We want to thank the provincial government for choosing eThekwini as a host for this summit. I'm sure you are aware that our municipality is over 60% rural informal settlement and township, and we experience challenges of land management just like all other municipalities in the province. Kuye kuthi ndunankulu makhulunywa ngemetro yalapha KwaZulu-Natal, abaningi becabanga ukuthi kukhulunywa ngedolobha. Kanti masikhuluma ngale metro, sikhuluma ngemetro eney'ndawo ey'ningi zasemakhaya. Iy'ndawo ey'ningi futhi ey'ngathuthukile kuma-informal settlements namalokishi ethu amadala namasha esibhekene nawo. Therefore, we have no doubt that this gathering will go a long way in assisting us as municipalities on how to enhance our spatial development planning. For us, this is key because as local government, we are at the coal face of service delivery and we remain closest to the people. Those who are operating at the local sphere of government will agree with me that municipalities are faced with a number of land management challenges, which include the following. Ukuthutheleka kwabantu ngobuningi babo beza ey'ndaweni esemadolobheni bezofuna imisebenzi, amathuba emisebenzi, bezofuna amathuba omnotho. Lokhu kwenza ukuthi idolobha lethu elibizwa ngemetro ligcina likhula kakhulu nsuku zonke. Ukungenelela kwabantu bezithathela ngodli umhlaba. Eminye imihlaba esey'ndaweni zamakhosi, eminye imihlaba kube umhlaba kamasipala noma kahulumeni, abantu bezithathele wona. So those are rapid urbanization and land invasion. Allocation of land designed for development to private individuals, particularly in rural and township communities. Kuzosilekelela ke futhi ukuthi sibheke indlela ekuhleleka ngayo ukwenganyelwa komhlaba wethu. Uma sibheka sekunoshintsho olukhona ndunankulu wesifundazwe sakithi babucebisa. Abantu abaningi bayafuduka manje ey'ndaweni ezisemadolobheni, babuyele ey'ndaweni ezisemakhaya. Into ebenza ke bebuyele ey'ndaweni ezisemakhaya ingoba izinga lempilo nelokuphila kulezi indawo ezithuthukileyo noma ebizibizwa ama-affluent areas kwenza ukuthi kwehlisa iy'ndleko nakuwe. Abanye ke baze bathi kungcono ngoba endaweni emakhosi angizukwakhokha ama-rates, la bengikhona bengibulawa ama-rates. Kodwa ke kube udaba ke lolo njengomasipala esibona fanele sihlale phansi namakhosi nemphakathi sibonisane ngalo ukuthi yiphi indlela engconywana nenhle esosebenzisana ngayo, ngoba awukwazi ukugcina ungakhokhelanga iy'dingo ukuthi zigcineke zibe zinhle endaweni ohlezi kuyona. Kodwa ukuthi igama ngasetshenziswe lithi ama-rates noma kusetshenziswa liphi igama, cabanga ukuthi lokhu kuyoqhamuka ke mahlelo ephansi ukuthi yiphi indlela ekubanjiswana ngayo. To address these challenges, as the municipality, We are constantly engaging traditional leaders to work with us to ensure that land earmarked for development is utilized solely for this purpose. We are also in the process of establishing land invasion committees who will be our eyes and ears on the ground to proactively alert us on land invasion incidents. Istrategy sethu ndunankulu asisebenzanga kahle sesihlehlile sakubheka lokho ukuthi iland invasion awukwazi kuyimanage ngamaphoyisa kamasipala. Uthumela amaphoyisa ohlala lapha engabe enza umsebenzi wokulwa necrime noku-enforcer itraffic egcine ehleli-ke gade nje umhlaba. Kodwa sibona lolu daba silibuyisele emphakathini sibambisane nayo ngoba ama-land invasion forums azobe vele emphakathini, umphakathi okuyiwona odinga ukupreserve umhlaba ukuze umhlaba ungathathwa abantu abazosebenzisa ngendlela engezukuhlomlisa bonke abantu endaweni. That is why we continuously urge our residents to work with us to ensure that no one undermines our progressive spatial development plans. It is abundantly clear that illegal occupation of land stands in the way of transformative development initiative, which seeks to improve the living conditions of people, particularly the poor. Equally, as we gathered here today to find solutions, we must be mindful of the history that contributed to the challenges of land management we continue to witness in our country. The apartheid spatial development planning ensured that the majority of South Africans resides in areas that were not suitable for human habitation as they lacked the most basic services. Therefore, we are optimistic that in our engagements we'll be able to formulate a framework and a roadmap to address all these challenges. Our discussions must also respond to the issues of rapid urbanization, which contributes to the interruption of basic services such as water and electricity. Kuthiwa siyahluleka ukuhambisa ugesi ngendlela namanzi ndunankulu ngoba abantu umphakathi bese uphakela ngamanzi nangogesi uhlinzekela amanzi nangogesi baningi abasithathela wona ngodli beyifake bona eindaweni esefanele nabo sibafaka ohlelweni lokuthi bekwazi ukuthola lezi zidingo. For instance, in the past 5 years, the population of eThekwini has increased by 25%. This has also put a huge strain on our bulk infrastructure, as it also aging. Leadership and colleagues, we trust that this summit will help us in ensuring that land management creates more united and integrated communities rather than reinforcing existing inequalities in our society. This should be the platform that helps us to address the challenges that confront us daily of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. As we welcome you to the city of eThekwini, we want to assure you that our commitment to implement the resolutions that will be adopted from this summit, as they will help us to achieve our vision of being the most caring and livable city by 2030. I thank you, Honorable MEC.
Very much, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Councillor Kaunda for welcoming us. Now we can even take our coats out. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We will then move first to invite Inkosi Yasematungeni Sihle Provincial House to give us a message of support. Sihle.
Thank you, Program Director, MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Honorable Premier of the Province of KwaZulu-Natal, His Worship the Mayor of eThekwini, Honorable MECs, MEC Nkonyeni, MEC Sihle Mloyi, Makhosi Asendlunkulu, Nabesilo, Malunga Executive Yendle Makosi, all chairpersons from the local houses, Mayor as corner, Masagala Mayor, Nawonge ama stakeholders akona. Honorable Premier, I won't waste any time because for me is to render a message of support in this important summit. As the institution of traditional leadership, first and foremost, we fully support this summit. For us, it's long overdue. Ngiyafisa ndunankulu ukucacisa kafishane ukuthi, as I've said, angizuchitha isikhathi ngoba isikhathi esikhulu esokuthi kuxoxwe ngendlela eyaphambili. But ngizofisa ukudlulisela kuwe i-position paper yobukhosi about indaba yomhlaba. This position paper will be presented by the chairperson of the Land Committee of the House of Traditional Leaders in OCTN, Mzimela, in the commissions tomorrow. But we position yethu as ubukhosi kulesi sifundazwe. It's very clear, Premier. That's why we are saying si supporta kakhulu i-summit. Even wonke ama-summit abekhona, our position is clear. Ukuthi whatever eyenziwayo ezama uqinisekisa ukuthi there is unity, there is peace, there is fast tracking of development in rural areas, si supporta ngayo yonke indlela. As long as leyo nto izobe iqinisekisa ukuthi ihlonipha ubukhosi as ubukhosi. If we are talking about ubukhosi, we are not talking about inkosi as individuals. We are talking about ubukhosi, ama structures obukhosi who are administering the land eindaweni zamakhosi. And siyafisa ukuthi ikakhulu Premier ithinta izinto ezimbalwa njengoba sengishilo phathwa komhlaba, ngoba sikholwa ukuthi kubalekile ukuhlala phansi sixoxe sibuka zona lezi icucwana, ngoba nje each and every time when we are talking about land, we usually focus kulezi icucwana nje ezikithi. U-74% osesezandleni ezithile ukuthi ukuthatha isikhathi ukuthi sifocus kuwo. I strongly believe this summit izokwazi ukubuka lezo zinto ezifana nalezo ezithi kunini la umhlaba uyobuyiselwa khona eindaweni ezifanele. Sikhuluma ke uma sikhuluma ngama wars of resistance, abantu into ababeyiresista bencamela ngisho ukufa kwakumhlaba nobukhosi bawo beyimiphakathi nobukhosi bawo. Sikholwa ukuthi ke siyobe sifike khona masikwaze ukuxoxa lezo zinto. I-issue yesipluma, usually makukhulunywa ngesipluma kuthinta kamakhosi labo khanda qinile. Bazoqala ke basho i-position yethu will remain the same. Uma sikhuluma ngosipluma, we are not against usipluma as usipluma igama. No. But sithi ake ibhekisiswe indaba yalama tribunals okukhulunywa ngawo fayoba namandla abeseba lapha ekhuluma ngomhlaba wasemadungeni noma ngomhlaba wakwaSithole. Kube nento eyokwazi ukubhekisiswa. It's where siyokwazi ukuthi sibe ingxenye yokubona ukuthi kusho kona. But today, asikho lapha to point fingers to each other, but we are here to try siqhamuke nendlela yokuthi singenza kanjani uqinisekisa ukuthi umhlaba usetshenzwa ngendlela efanele. I-position paper yethu ndunankulu engizoyihandover kuwe ezokwethulwa inkosi ehloniphekile yasemazimeleni uma isikhathi sesifika. I-position yethu njengamakhosi lapha kwi-province yaKwaZulu-Natal ngoba siyafisa ukukhumbuza bonke abalapha kule summit ukuthi isifundazwe saKwaZulu-Natal sisifundazwe esinengonyama, the monarch of the Zulu nation. Kube khona amakhosi, lokho ke kusho ukuthi ukuze kube khona imonarchy yoba khona ngoba kukhona umhlaba. Ukuze kube khona ubukhosi uyoba khona ngoba kukhona umhlaba nabantu abakhelela umakhosi. Uqiniswa ke kobudlelwane kuyoba uqinisekisa ukuthi zonke inhlaka ezenziwayo zisekele ukusebenza nokuqinisekisa kweinhlaka ezazivele zikhona zingamele umhlaba. Thank you. Ngizohandover lokhu kuwe ndunankulu.
Thank you very much, Siyabonga kakhulu, Nkosi yesizwe. We really appreciate that amakhosi endlunkulu okana they support this provincial land summit. I think we are the only government of the day that work close with amakhosi asendlunkulu onkana because we respect amakhosi asendlunkulu. Hence the Premier ensure that we invite them and they must participate. And indeed, through the commissions, we will receive the presentation from Amakosi Asendlunkulu as the chair of the Provincial House have already indicated. We will engage from there, but balekile sikudlulisa ukuthi so uhulumeni okwaziyo ukuthi sibanakekele kakhulu amakhosi and so ulalele nombono wabo. Having said that, I will then request that part of the presentation or the purpose that was presented by Lisa, she also spoke about the agricultural land. As she spoke about that, there is an MEC that deals with agriculture. Hence, we are giving her an opportunity to talk to us. She will then introduce the Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Premier Zikalala, because Premier Zikalala, he will be the keynote speaker. We're not going to, maybe on your agenda, we want to change. There is no deputy minister from national. So we've agreed that all the inputs that are going to be presented by the national government through the minister or deputy minister will be part of keynotes from the Premier, and then the colleagues from the national government, from land affairs, they will be given opportunity to present in the commission, will then engage from there. I will then request that MEC Stolem Loye to come through and talk to us. So we'll then introduce the Premier. Thank you very much.
Sibonge kumqondisi wohlelo lanamhlanje kule summit esikuyo umhlonishwa ungqongqoshe wakaKhotha umhlonishwa uHlomuka. Angibingelele kundunankulu wesifundazwe sakithi KwaZulu-Natal umhlonishwa uZikalala Cebisa. Siyabingelela ongqongqoshe abakhona, ungqongqoshe uNkonyeni wezokuthutha kanye nokuphepha komphakathi. Sibingelele ngenkulu inhlonipho sikhuleke emakhosini asendlunkulu eholwa usihlalo wendlu yobukhosi kwisifundazwe sakithi inkosi yaseMadungeni nina besilo siyakhuleka. Sibingelele imeya yalapha esisamukelile Mbimbi. Sibingelele kuzona zonke izimeya ezikhona nalabo abamele imikhandlu ngokwahlukana kwayo abakhona kulapha kule mbuthano esinawo okuzoxoxa ngokuphathwa nokuhlengahlengiswa nokulekelela ukuba umhlaba usetshenziswe ukuze sonke sikwazi ukuzuza nomnotho wakithi ufukame. Siyathanda nokubingelela ngenhlonipho kubona bonke izicukuthwane ngokwemkhakha eyahlukene nobuholi obuvele emkhakheni eyahlukene obukule mbuthano wethu wale governance summit, land governance summit, abakhona lapha. Sibingelele kubasebenzi, siqale kulaba ababuya kuma department akazwelonke nalabo ababuya kuma department esifundazwe beholwa ihhovisi likaNdunankulu ngokwethu lapha kwisifundazwe. Sibingelele zonke izethameli nalabo abazobamba iqhaza kulolu suku usukela namhlanje kuze kube kusasa lapho sidingada khona izindaba zomhlaba. Ngiyanibingelela nonke egameni lombuso waKwaZulu-Natal. Ngithunywe kanjalo ukuthi ngibheke umhlaba on behalf of uPremier neindaba zokutshala on behalf of uPremier kwaZulu-Natal. Sifisa ukuthi ke sisho njengomnyango wezolimo ukuthi uhlelo lolu esingalo namhlanje luhlelo olakhankanywa lakhulunywa ngabaholi ababengaphambili kwethu lapho behlela uhlelo lokuthi uma sithi siyobe sesikhululekile siyozibona ngani kwase kwenziwa umqulu wenkululeko esiubiza ngokuthi Freedom Charter. Kunesigatshana ke esilapha ku Freedom Charter esithi umhlaba uyokwabela bonke labo abawusebenzisayo ngolimi ke lolu ke oluphucukile kuthiwa the land shall be shared amongst those who work it. Kusho ukuthi ke umhlaba kwase kusuku nemithetho eyabe seyuthathile ezandleni zabanikazi bawo okungabami nabahlali balapha ezweni lakithi lase South Africa. Okwakusho ukuthi ke kofanele kwenza uhlelo ke lokuthi bubuyiselwe umhlaba kulabo abangabanikazi bawo nelungelo lokuthi usihambe ngokukhululeka uhlale lapho uthanda ukuhlala khona ngoba ungumhlali walapha ungumtsinsi wokumila walapha ezweni lase South Africa nalabo asebengabakhi balapha eSouth Africa. Kungenxa yalokho ke sincikisa inkulumo yethu ekutheni basiyalela ukuthi kuyokwenzeka kanjani kuba sibone ukuthi sikhululekile makufike esigabeni somhlaba. Umhlaba uyonikezelwa laba bazowusebenzisa. Bangawusebenzisa ngokuhlala, bangawusebenzisa ngokuba bakhe inzuzo kuba baziphilise njengemindeni, bakhe futhi izinto zokuba baziphilise, bakhiphe basuse ikati eziko kube khona inala, kube khona ukudla abantu babe sempilweni. Kusho ukuthi ke silawulwa yileyo mkhakha kumqulu wenkululeko uma sifika sizoma njengomnyango wezolimo nokuthuthukiswa kwemiphakathi yasemakhaya. Akukho kunye esingakwenza singabhekile lokho ngoba umhlaba yiwona oyingqikithi yako konke ukuphila kwethu. Singephile uma singenawo umhlaba esikwazi ukuba nelungelo lokwenza lokho esifisa ukwenza ukuba sithuthukise izwe lakithi, sithuthukise nendlela yethu yokuphila nendawo esihlala kuzona emakhaya. Ilokho ke okubanga ukuthi ke namhlanje sithi nathi njengomnyango wezolimo nokushuswa kwendawo zomphakathi sithi siyabonga ukuthi ke nibe khona. Siyazi ukuthi kunobuchule nobunyonincwa kanye namava amaningi azokwazi ukuthi siwathole nisikhulumisa nathi nisilekelela ekutheni singakwenza kanjani kuba iphupho lokhokho bethu liphumelele ekutheni umhlaba ubuyele ebantwini usebenziselwe isidingo sabantu kuze abantu izimpilo zabo zishintshe. Siyazi ukuthi njengoba nihlela nizokwazi ukuthi nisilekelele sikwazi ukwenza lokho ngempumelelo. Lapha kuhlele amakhosi asendlunkulu anamava nawo azosipha wona. Kuhleli izikhulu ezivele emkhakheni yahlukene, kuhleli izimeya ezinikwa amandla ukuba zisebenze ukuqinisekisa ukuthi kuyathuthukiswa izwe lakithi. Lawo mandla ke alindele ukuthi ke thina sishintshe izimo ebezingafani ebezingabanikeza isithunzi abantu bakithi zenze ukuba bakwazi ukuba bathole isithunzi. So ke sinamandla esiwanikiwe ngenxa yokuthi kuzabalaziwe kwaze kwafika la sikhona namhlanje sithi sikhululekile. Inkululeko iyobonakala ngokuthi sibe namandla futhi okuba sikwazi ukusebenza umhlaba, sikwazi ukuwungamela nokuwenza ukuba usetshenziswe ngendlela efanele, futhi sikwazi nokuwonga umhlaba wethu ukuba ungonakali sibigcine sesingasakwazi ukuziphilisa nangawo nokuhlala kuwona. Yiloko okubalekile namhlanje thina esizokushayela ihlombe sithi siyabonga kundunankulu. Undunankulu wethu ke uye wahambela kakhulu ngoba ngale kokuthi sikhulume ngomhlaba nje, kodwa kukhona abantu nakhona futhi namanje abahlalayo endaweni ezingamafamu nendawo lapho kusuke kulinywa khona kwenziwa ezolimo, abangahlelisene kahle nalabo abasuke bengabanikazi balowo mhlaba. Lokho kulithatha ukuba undunankulu mayiseqedela lolu hambo lakhe aliqala ngokuya oPhongolo, asuka oPhongolo aye eMzinyathi bese egcina eNewcastle lokuthi enze ikomiti elihlanganisa yonke imikhakha ethinta umhlaba, lapho ewusihlalo khona sibambisene nami enginikile ithuba lokuba ngibe ucoach walelo komiti ukuba siyibheke zonke lezi indaba ukuthi singazilamula kanjani, singasebenzisana kanjani nawo bonke abantu abathintakalayo, amakhosi, abaphathi bakahulumeni, amakhansela, izimeya, ukuba siqinisekise nalabo abawusebenzisayo umhlaba ukuba bazithuthukise bona nokuthi befuna indawo yokuhlala. Singenza kanjani ukuqinisekisa ukuthi siyakwenza lokho kungabi nazingqinamba, sibuyisele isithunzi somuntu wakithi nabo bonke abantu abangabahlali base South Africa endaweni yabo, kakhulukazi lapha KwaZulu-Natal. Undunankulu ke wethu ke usilawuleleke ukuthi njengomnyango wezolimo sibalulekile ukuba siqinisekise ukuthi umnyango wezolimo uyakhombisa ukushintsha, ushintshe ube sekutheni ucheme nabantu okuyibo abangathathi entweni, sibanikeza amandla ukuba bakwazi ukuthi bawusebenzise umhlaba, bakwazi ukuziphilisa. Yikona ke lokho okwenza ukuthi ke sikwazi ukuthi umnyango wezolimo yiwona obuba umnyango wesibili ekufakeni umthamo omkhulu ukuthuthukiswa komnotho wesifundazwe sakithi kanjalo nokuthuthukiswa komnotho wezwe lakithi. Ingakho ke sithi ke namhlanje siyakujabulela lokho. Ziningi ke izinto esingazisho kodwa sizodedela ukuba sixoxe, kuboniswane, kubanjiswane, kulekelelwane lapho ngoba sonke sikhona esikwaziyo khona futhi esingakwazi. Sizokwazi ukuthi sifunde okunye, sizokwazi ukuba sithole futhi nolwazi oluthe thuthu oluzosenza ukuba sikwazi ukwenza lo msebenzi esiwunikiwe njengohulumeni waKwaZulu-Natal ngempumelelo. Kangakumbi ke umnyango wezolimo sikwazi ukuthi silekelele abantu abafisa ukusebenzisa umhlabathi ukuziphilisa nokuphilisa imindeni yabo ngempumelelo. Undunankulu ke mayikhuluma ke wathi ke umnyango ke wezolimo ubaluleke ngendlela emangalisayo. Ngiyengithi ke Ndunankulu mangichaza ngiqhubeka ngiyengithi sonke lapha endlini akekho ngathintwa umnyango wezolimo. Ingubo igqokile ivele ekulimeni, ipeni engiliphethe livele ekulimeni, idesk engihleli kulona livele ekulimeni. Ekseni ngivuke ngadla iqanda elivele enkukhwini efuywa ngabalimi, ngadla ubhekeni ovele engulubeni efuywa ngabalimi, ngadla ispinach esivele emasimini esitshalwa ngabalimi. Kusho ukuthi ke uagriculture uyimpilo yethu, uagriculture uyikusasa lethu, akasoze aphela uagriculture. Kuyophela yonke eminye imikhakha kodwa umkhakha kaagriculture uyohlala ukhona. Yingakho sifuna ukuthi ucwaningo nokusebenza kwalomnyango uvuleleke kukwazi ukuthi kusinika amathuba ukuthi uzinze lo mnyango bese uyakwazi ukuthi ufezakalise iphupho lokhokho bethu nabaholi bethu abasendulelayo lokuthi bonke abantu bayonikezwe ithuba lokuba bawusebenzise umhlaba laba bawusebenzisa ngokulinganayo. Ngithanda ukuthi ke ngalawo mazwi sibonge kakhulu, ngifiselele summit ukuba engathi ingaba nensuku ezinhle ezimbili nokuxoxisana kwethu kube yilokho okuzothatha isifundazwe sakithi KwaZulu-Natal kusise phambili. Ngalawo mazwi ke ngifisa ukuphakamisa undunankulu wesifundazwe sakithi ubaba uKhuzeni ophinda abe usihlalo ka-African National Congress kwisifunda sakithi. Angizumkhankanya kakhulu, beke waphinda waba ungqongqoshe wezokuthuthukiswa komnotho nokungcebeleka kanjalo nezokugcinwa kwemvelo lapha kwisifundazwe sakithi. Useyundunankulu ke wethu ke kusukela ngonyaka ka-2016 or 2019. Ndunankulu ngiyazi ukuthi awufuni sixoxe ngawe kodwa ke ngiyafisa ukuthi ke ngenze ubulungiswa ngoba ngikuthule ngenhlonipho ngoba sifanele ukwenze njalo njengoba sinikwe lo msebenzi ukuba sihloniphe abaholi. Sifisa ukuphakamisa undunankulu, ngicela ukuba siphakame simamukele uKhuzeni cebisa, sikunike ithuba lokuba ukhulume nabaholi.
Siyabonga, singahlala phansi. Program Director, MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in KwaZulu-Natal, MEC Mloyi, no. God. Manje MEC Mloyi uzela wabala ukuthi usedleni wadlana abanye bethu balambile. So sesiyadideka nje. Program Director, MEC for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Honorable MEC Hlomuga, MEC for KwaZulu-Natal Department of Agriculture, Rural Development, MEC Mloyi, MEC Nkonyeni, MEC for Transport, Community Safety and Liaison, His Worship the Mayor of eThekwini, Councillor Kaunda, His Worship Mayors of our districts and various local municipalities, the Chairperson of the House of the Provincial Traditional Leaders, Inkosi Madungeni Siyabingelela. Our traditional leaders who come from the House and all other traditional leaders who are with us. The heads of department, Mr. Tubane from Kokta and Mr. Simande from Dart, CEOs of entities who are here, especially the ATA, senior government officials, civil society representatives, social partners, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media and all. I wish to commend our input by welcoming the opportunity of convening this KwaZulu-Natal Land Summit. I convey special words of gratitude to all traditional leaders who have responded positively to the call of ensuring that we are with government and all other stakeholders to contribute to improving land governance in the province and accelerate socio-economic transformation. A word of appreciation to KwaZulu-Natal Kokta for hard work they've done in preparation for this summit and in crafting a solid conceptual framework for discussions that will ensue between today and tomorrow. All of us gathered here are here because we are driven by the passion to accelerate development and to improve the lives of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. We are joined together in the hip because the development of this province requires strong commitment from all of us and from all stakeholders. Land being an emotive issue in the history of our country for nearly 4 centuries, we must not do so much, or we must be clear on what we will try to do today, in as far as the land is concerned. We're not here to address to the fundamental and the most critical question, and that is of colonialism and apartheid, dispossession of land of the black majority. But we're here to deal with the issue of governance, management and administration of land. So we will be guided by the already existing legislation such as the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act of 2013, which came into effect in 2015. Among others, Spluma provide a framework for spatial planning, land use. It is an important piece of legislation meant to guide our country toward inclusive development, equitable, and efficient spatial planning in all spheres of government. Now, ngiyafuna ukuyigcizelela le. Asihlangene ukudila nematter enkulu. Kona imatter enkulu yangempela. I-issue yokubuya komhlaba. Mayor of Herigwala, Councillor Zwide, you have always raised this point. And I want to assure you that under the leadership of MEC Mloyi, we are going to have that provincial summit to look on how the land that were dispossessed is brought back. What are the pieces of legislations that could help us? How far we've gone in ensuring that the land that have been transferred to the people is used and utilized effectively. Kodwa namuhla sihlangene nje ukubheka ukuthi lo mhlaba okhona umanejwa kanjani, usetshenziswa kanjani ngendlela. Now, I do want to engage with a fundamental question: why land? And I will humble all of us to try and engage with this issue. Why land? What is the essence? Why land is important? Land is important because that's where people live. So it's important for residential purposes. Land is important for development. But land is important for commercial activities. Any land that is not occupied on these three areas might not be effectively utilized. So it's either umhlaba okuhlala kuwo abantu or umhlaba osetshenziselwa intuthuko or umhlaba onjani okusetshenzwa kuwo ngokwani ngokwemboni. Now ngiyafisa ukuthi singayibalekeli into enzima. Sizibheke. Especially ezweni elifana naleli lethu. Ezweni la abaholi njalo beaccuswa ukuthi babhekela bona kuqala. Sonke if sikwi leadership, we must accept ukuthi sikwi leadership ukuserve abantu. And we must use umhlaba ukubenefita abantu. And I want to build on iphuzu elishiwo inkosi yesizwe, inkosi yaseMadungeni. Ubukhosi bukhona ngenxa yani yendlunkulu. Ubukhosi bezizwe bukhona ngenxa yomhlaba. Ubukhosi bezizwe bukhona ngenxa yabantu. Uma ngathiwa nje abekho abantu, I'm sure ukuthi Nkosi yesizwe Ngolanyama kungaba nenkinga. So there is no sector kahulumeni or yobuholi ekudinga ithi yona ingaphila without abantu. Uma soke sivuma ukuthi abantu bakwi periphery, I think siyobe siyazikhohlisa. So at the center of all that we discuss must be how do we use the land effectively for the people and for generations to come. All policies and programs must be geared toward meeting that expectation and the expectation of human development. I wanted to start on this point because we often get preoccupied by the ownership, whether it is government or traditional leaders, and we forget to talk about the real people. The real people who should utilize the land for residential, for development or for commercial purposes. It was against this background that the 2019 Cabinet Lekgotla resolved that we must have this summit. The Cabinet Lekgotla said, as I quote, there needs to be a close collaboration on planning issues as well as allocation of sites between Amakosi and local municipalities in order to improve planning as well as provision of services. In this regard, an urgent summit should be held between Amakosi, municipalities, and provincial government departments. The summit must also deal with the implementation of Spluma in the Ingonyama Trust land, close quote. So, what should be the purpose of this engagement? Is how do we collaborate to ensure ukuthi umuzikalala bekwa endwedwe ubekwa qondakala ukuthi nayo uyodinga amanzi uyodinga ugesi. And how do we ensure ukuthi i-planning yokubeka abantu nje iyahambisana nokuthi ngelinye ilanga kuyoba lentuthuko, and lentuthuko iyoba mhlambe incrementally based ekutheni population ikhula kangakanani. So there should be a collaboration around these issues. And when the government made this point, it emphasized ukuthi khona umhlaba under Ingonyama Trust. And in reality, takuwona umhlaba omkhulu even la KwaZulu-Natal. Ukhona umhlaba osemakhosini. Uma abantu bebekwa kulo mhlaba, ibona futhi labantu abazodingani intuthuko. And therefore, omasipala kumele bayilethe intuthuko. So obekayo noletha intuthuko akube khona ukusebenzisana, especially around the basic services. Amanzi, ugesi, imigwaqo. Zikhona indawo, okay, let me not be, but let me be blind. If you travel like South Africa, khona indawo la ukuthi uyafika khona ubone ukuthi indlela yokuhlaliswa kwabantu even emakhaya iyacabanga ukuthi kumele kube nentuthuko. Ubone ukuthi uyabona laba bekwe bahlala abantu ngendlela eletha kube lula ukuletha intuthuko. Mase kuba ukuthi nazi indawo zokulima lapha ya. Mase kuba khona futhi indawo la kuba khona umuntu ohlala la omunye ahlale ngale. As a result ukuletha amanzi kube umzukuzuku, ukuletha ugesi kube inkinga. Ayikho into enzima njengokususa umuntu esakhile. Ukwakha i-attachment ilethwa into ezihlukahlukene. So sinomsebenzi kule summit ukuthi siqale ke sibheke lolu daba ngendlela endawonye. Is it not possible ukuthi ke sithi nazi indawo yokuhlala la, na indawo yokulima, ngendlela ezokwazi ukuthi abantu baqoqeke bayithole zonke idingo kalula, but at the same time bakwazi ukuyisebenza. Now, I think this is very important in terms of management and the use of land in traditional areas. We also look to this summit to succeed in mobilizing land administration and management role players in the public, the private, civil society, and communities for a collective review and improvement of the land administration and management efficiencies in KwaZulu-Natal. We have a full confidence that the summit will allow the province to reach a consensus on how best can we manage land access to advanced development of all people of the province. I therefore believe that the themes that have been identified for commission augurs well to advance the purpose of this summit. The summit is held under the theme toward efficient land administration for the rapid release of priority development land, integrated land use management, and unified tenure management, compliance and enforcement services accessible at one-stop land development offices in the district. While the democratic government has done more since 1994 to improve and consolidate various pieces of legislation under one law, we all know that we still have to do a lot in terms of improving land governance. We are aware that various provinces have adopted Spluma to suit their unique circumstances. And in this regard, we submit that the province of KwaZulu-Natal, as a largely rural province, has its own history, dynamics, and that legislation was promulgated to accommodate the unique history and circumstances of our province. Our task at this land summit is to make sure that we learn from our own experiences since the dawn of democracy, with a view of ensuring that the development of future generations is not constrained or delayed because of various legislations. This is a summit that requires that we begin doing business differently to unlock growth and development opportunities which are often tied to land as a productive economic asset. Our resolutions here must help us to succeed in managing rapid urbanization, not only brought by improving human settlement in towns, but we also have to advance the development of rural areas. We must ensure that rural areas become attractive centers of investment, viable economies, and quality service delivery. And therefore, I will concur that ey'ndaweni ey'ningi kumele sikwazi ukulumbanisa intuthuko nani nokuhlaliswa kwabantu. Nkosi yesizwe, Nkosi uXimba, ngineqiniso lokuthi mhlawumbe uyibone le yenzeka ey'ndaweni la eyiseThekwini. Umuya kulezi indawo ey'nosizakala center, uthi umuntu uyadlula uthola ukuthi ngaphandle kunabantwana abahleli ngaphandle kosizakala center, and labantwana uzothola bahleli bakuma-phones. Why bahlale lapha? It's because kusizakala center kune-Wi-Fi, and bona sebeyakwazi ukuthola i-Wi-Fi mahala, and therefore bazoze bayohlala khona ngoba ukuya kude kubakhanda bangakwazi ukutholani i-Wi-Fi. Iqiniso ukuthi esikhathini sanamuhla umntwana umeke wafunda waze wafika kulokho esasithi standard 6, Mayor Mbovu wathi nje standard 6 dinga ukubheka ukuthi usayidinga i-access to i-technology. Nakhona ku standard 6 ngithi at least kodwa abantwana baqala nje ukusebenzisa manje access to technology mhlambe beko 11 years. Now the practical example of what I've seen kwaXimba Nkosi yesizwe, ngazibuza ukuthi labantwana bahlaleleni baze babulayila. But the reality is that bafuni service, and less service around this center. And I will say with no doubt that some of these kids wanted this service for useful things, Bakhona babengayofuna mhlambe iWi-Fi ukuthi bayidlalele benze into ezihlukahlukene. Kodwa ngiyazi ukuthi iningi labafundi they need it so that bafunde. And therefore we should ask ourselves ukuthi senze njani ukuletha intuthuko emakhaya ngangokuthi ukuhlala emakhaya nokuhlala edolobheni kufane. Ungabi ne disadvantage yokuba kwenye indawo uma uKwaZulu-Natal. I'm sure sonke challenge esibhekene nayo siyayiqonda kahle. And I'm sure siyaqonda ukuthi sivelaphi ngeinkinga esibe nazo before. And therefore ukuletha kwethu intuthuko kumele kusilekelele ukuthi kube lula kwenzeke kalula. At the center of these also are basic services. Basic services. We still struggle around the formula of delivering water and sanitation. Water is a right. Sanitation is bring dignity. And everyone must have access to water, but equally enjoy that dignity. Yokuthi akwazi ukuba nani ne sanitation system ekahle. The mayor spoke about abasuke emadolobheni bayohlala phi endaweni zasemakhaya. The reality is that those people, when they go and stay in rural areas, they go there and install their own sanitation system. Bayifakela ama-septic tank bona. Mese behlala emakhaya. So babe ney'ndawo la bekwazi ukukhanyisa ugesi uma ukhona, babe namanzi, babe ne-toilet shower. But the reality, not everyone will afford to have what? The septic tanks. And therefore, the planning and the location of communities must talk to the plan also of bringing development. And that's why I started by saying, i-question fundamental yokubuya komhlaba asingayo namuhla. I-question ye-ownership asingayo, singokuthi senze njani ukuthi abantu ke behlale ngendlela yokuthi bathole zonke idingo. Zonke izinto ngendlela abayidingayo. Uma ku-allocate budget national, i-allocate on the basis of the population. I allocate on the basis of ukuma kwendawo. Kubhekwa ukuthi abantu bangakanani KwaZulu-Natal bese kuthiwa nansi budget. Akushiwo ukuthi no iKwaZulu-Natal ibuye ibe neintaba kwehle kube nzima. Hayi topography ayibhekwa. Manje kubhekwa isibalo sabantu. As a result, lot of resources othola ukuthi abezosebenza kangcono ngokongeke uma besihlele kahle kuma kweindawo nokuhlala kwabantu. Aphele kakhulu ekutheni kudinga sikhave omunye lapha sikhave omunye lapha sikhave omunye. As we talk, KwaZulu-Natal is planning to provide houses to a lot of people. We want to eradicate informal settlements, including all Indele. We're committed to build houses even in rural areas. But the reality is that a house you build or the allocation you make in building houses in rural areas is not the same than you will do in a township. Uma ufika uthi sizokwakha izindlu ezingu-20,000 kulesi sigodi, uma usuthi sizokwakha izindlu ezingu-20,000 kule section, the amount will not be the same. Kule i-section uyazi ukuthi uzovula umuntu nje ozokwakha uzovula indawo yokusebenzela i-operation center yodwa, abeke lapha i-material yonke, uyazi ukuthi uzoyigada lapha i-material, allocate transporter to one area to the other. Uma ufika ngakithi, esigodini sangakithi, ngisho esitobhini sangakithi, ungayibeka khona, kodwa kuzodinga ubuye uyidlulise uyoyibeka kwenye indawo. Ngoba awuzokwazi ukuthi uyibeke esitobhini, usikhave sonke ukwakha izindlu. I-radius yendawo iyodwa iyakuphoqa ukuthi yiba ne-center la, ube ne-center laphaya, ube ne-center laphaya. So we should be proactive for future generations to come. Kumele bethi the generation that existed before us lay a platform for equitable distribution of resources and for development. We're grateful Nkosi Yesizwe that amakhosi have a position paper that they've developed, and therefore we would want also to incorporate that position paper and ensure that it becomes part of the framework that will guide us on development. But I'm emphatic on the purpose so that we don't find each other arguing astray and from different point of views. I know for a fact that if MEC Mloyi intend to develop the community through agriculture, it is better if insimi yakwa Sokhulu iqhumene nensimi yakwa Muelase, and therefore umeyilima uzoyilima kanye kanye, and they become a particular farm eyodwa but subdivided, and therefore it make it easy for the people to ukuthi bangenjani balime endaweni ngoba uhulumeni uzobenzela kalula. Kulukhuni kodwa ukulima kwezinye indawo ngoba kudinga ulimela ubani lapha. Owakho umhlaba umi ngenye indlela, uthi uyakwamakhelwane uthola ukuthi kulukhuni, omunye umakhelwane hayi mina ngikho kulimile. Kanti uma sazi ukuthi indawo zokulima zingala, wonke umuntu uzoyolima lapho, kusubdividiwe, ulima ubenefite ngokomsebenzi owenze wena. Hayi ukuthi kuzothi nje ngoba sekulinyiwe so benefita equally, cha. Umuntu nomuntu uyayisebenza yena. So it becomes easy for government to invest resources. From simple resources, whether you talk of ukulima, ukufensa, irrigation, ukuvuna. Ngoba namuhla kudinga sivuma ukuthi Nkosi Yesizwe ukuvuna kusafana. Sasingawuvuna thina umbila nobhontshisi maqede ushawe sikwazi ukuthi suhlunge lapho. Kodwa namuhla sekuvunwa ngemishini, and that make it easy. So we want to emphasize this point so that we understand we're gathered here on a very strategic and a critical task of development. This is the foundation of development. It's a key foundation. You miss it, we will continue to work in silos. We miss it, we will continue to spend a lot of resources instead of ensuring that we are complementing each other. I thought I should drive this point of the essence of this summit, that the summit should be about developmental arrangement guided by Spluma to ensure that we eventually manage to uplift the livelihood of the people in as far as their living conditions, their sporting activities, the location of schools and clinics and hospitals, but more so their own development. The Freedom Charter envisages that the rural areas will be one of the developed areas. They will not be just areas ey'thathwa ngokuthi nje. The Freedom Charter envisage rural communities to be among those that have all access to basic services, where infrastructure is quite improved, but where also economic activities take place. And therefore, we're hopeful that this summit will contribute toward the attainment of such a vision. We invite all stakeholders, amakhosi asendlunkulu onke, the business community, the civil society, including the academia, to make their modest contribution toward the improvement of land governance in the province, so that we can turn the corner to ensure that we expedite the development of the province, even in township and rural areas. Let us grow KwaZulu-Natal together. Siyabonga.
Thank you very much, Premier of KwaZulu-Natal, Premier Zikalala. We have able to cover a number of issues that deals with the land administration, land management systems, and the relationship between the government and the traditional affairs, government and the community, and how do we see government to assist our people, the strategic objective of the government, especially when we work together, government and other spheres of government, and also traditional affairs and municipalities. I think colleagues, delegates, participants, they have able to capture and understand what the Premier was saying, and he also spoke about the role of the national government. That's why I said the Premier, he will able to cover even the national government as they were supposed to be part, but through the engagement. That's why there is something called the district development model, Mbovu. The importance of district development model is to ensure that spheres of government and other stakeholders, including traditional affairs, they must work together and share together and plan and have an integrated planning. And part of the things that the Premier have raised is have an integrated planning to ensure that as government plan to develop communities, maybe through building houses or agriculture, but the land that is owned by the Amakoya Sendlunkulu, fanakwazi ukuthi nawo in terms of the now I'm afraid to ukuthi ngikhulume ngesploma or I will say spatial planning, because if I can raise this name of sploma nkosesizwe ngenze ngasayitholi isiza mathiwa sengifuna ukuyocela lapha enkosini yesizwe. I think we agreed that we'll have tea break. Our program is divided into 3 themes. We had this program that started at 10 o'clock, was supposed to start at 9 o'clock. I think we've exhausted in terms of the agenda of the program. That's why you will see in your program there is a tea break. We'll then, after tea break, we'll be given at least 15 minutes because time now is 11:30. As already indicated that we have 3 themes, and those themes, the first theme is identification of a well-located land for land access, ownership, and priority development, and the elimination of delays in release and acquisition of such land. It's one of the important themes that we must able to deal with the matters, and there have been a number of presentations that will be presented by the presenters. And we will be part of these presentation commissions already indicated. Some of our colleagues, the Premier, they will be here, but still dealing with other matters, because as we finish the first program, we will then allow, because we can't be here on top while they have changed now the program. The second theme is improving efficiency and functionality of land administration and management systems to support spatial inclusion and development. And if you will follow me, you will see that each theme have its program director. That's the point that I'm trying to drive home. That is my, I will hand over to other program director. The last theme, which is the third theme, which will be tomorrow as well, is a local land offices as an integrated service delivery model for effective and efficient services to citizens and developers. To citizens and developers. And there is a sequence. We understand the first theme, talk about the access of land and acquisition of land and how to work together, and the management of land administration and management of land system. You will then hear talk about the integrated service delivery model for effective and efficient service to citizens and for developers. Because we still need developers, because we have developers, they will develop our town, our rural areas, and part of developing that area will have job creations. As we have job creation, our economy will grow. As we grow economy and create job opportunities, then we'll decrease crime. Then we will have a peaceful society. As the Premier spoke about the Freedom Charter, but let me not go to the Freedom Charter. The next program director, Honorable Premier, after tea break, will be HOD for Agriculture, HOD Durban. Sorry, HOD Sibande. I'm sorry, Premier. I'm sorry. When you are used to work with someone, there's really no intention to undermine any organization or institution. I sincerely apologize. We'll then request that we come back here at exactly 11:45. Give 15 minutes so that we'll able, time is money. And so that we're able to finish within the correct time for those who might travel to any other areas, or those who have make appointment based on the program. This program was submitted to other stakeholders. Thank you very much. We'll then rise and allow the leadership led by the Premier. We'll then break for breakfast. I think say body breakfast, tea break. I'm sorry, not breakfast. Tea ngaphandle. We'll then come back at 2:15 12. Thank you very much. I guess sishayile izandla nje ukuthi sisiphathe kahle. Siyabonga. Thank you.